Again, Alex Salzman with the Visionary Network. That's my colleague, Patrick Kelly, operationalizing logistics during this virtual reception. A welcome to new invitees. There was a good number of those referred into the Visionary Network through this process. Others we invited on the key topic of longevity. And a quick comment, and then we'll pass it over to our featured presenters. Visionary very much intends to focus this session on the key members presenting, but also to get to better understand your objectives through the process pre and post event. And longevity represents an industry and a new topic, and Visionary often performs during new sectors and when new technologies are evolving. That much more the need for trusted connections and information is needed, and Visionary provides that trusted access in these key industries and agnostic across all industries. And I think increasingly, especially during COVID, and for those that have attended previous events, I think you've heard me say this before, but this year has reemphasized that business really does move through trust. And while access to data, be it LinkedIn, and using traditional mechanisms of brokers is something that should be considered as part of an overall outreach, Visionary has been filling this key void of on-demand, trusted, arranged meetings with those two people in the network that are mutually seeking to make each other's connection, with a follow supported process as well, at a remarkably economical or even fee-waived business model and network model, as we'll further detail. So mainly for those further familiarizing, those that already opted in, feel free to share an access survey update end of year. But as much as this is about, this session is featuring Visionary and those in our network, ultimately the real focus is on yourselves and our time to get to know each person through a welcoming meeting and a monthly or quarterly regroup. Who are you? What are your objectives? How can we be supportive? And being able to, for us to curate and recommend business opportunities, searching, whether you're looking for a web design firm end of year or other connection, or guaranteeing on-demand access with clients, investors, key partners, key hires that you're seeking. And Visionary has been one of the first to productize this access in qualified arranged meetings, usually a pilot or a group of 3 to 5 meetings at a time, and then evaluating going deeper into the Visionary network. Business development as a service. As you hear from XQers, we consider ourselves venture partners, an extension of their team, offering day-to-day support, advisory, and this arranged meeting access. Often we include a broker or a business development closer as part of the Visionary team. And then increasingly, and it's really taken off this year, what we call relationship capital management. As much as we're providing access into our network, we are powering the relationships and access to your own connections, including from the co-hosts that you'll hear from during the end of this webinar. And throughout is the currency of the Visionary network. These access credits offset or completely offset access to the network. So those participating, partially requesting meetings with those you're hearing from today, or earning access by taking meetings or referring others into the network, be it to meet with the presenters or in general, so that we can then support your objectives with the access, the event presentations, or the other member provided goods and services in the Visionary network, or hold it for further appreciation. So without further ado, hopefully you'll see our process in action. Hopefully you'll participate. We look forward to being in touch with all the attendees. We now will pass it to XQers and Cancer Commons to lead us in their discussion.
Great, thank you, Alex, really appreciate it. So first and foremost, a big thank you to Visionary for organizing this event and all of the great work you've been doing with us over the course of this year. It's really been very impactful to our business. So my name is Mika Newton. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of XQers. XQers is a health tech company focused on digital health in the advanced cancer space. So we focus on patients who have exhausted the standard of care, or for whom the standard of care is no longer working, or people who generally have a prognosis of survival of less than 5 years, or less than 50% over the next 5 years. We were incorporated in 2018. We're about 25 members across the Bay Area in North Carolina. Overall, we formed the company and we're actually spun out of a nonprofit called Cancer Commons. And I have my esteemed colleague, Erica, here with me today, who's going to tell you a little more about that. This year has been really, in some ways, I think for all of us, both surprising in both good and bad ways. I don't think any of us would have expected what happened with COVID. but it's certainly given us a lot of focus. And as we've been working with cancer patients, the cancer problem or the issue of cancer continues to loom large for many people over the course of the year. So it's been very engaging to be able to work with people in their situation overall. So just by way of quick background, we're working with Visionary overall on our fundraising activities and connections. So we've been working on business connections. We're also in the process of fundraising. We'll come back to that at the end of this meeting. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about the people that we work with and the companies and partners that we support. And I think the best way probably to do that is to turn this over to Erica and have her tell you about Cancer Commons and the experience that they've been having over the last, I guess, over a decade now, Erica. So Erica, why don't I pass it to you, and then I'll come back and fill in how XCures works in the background.
Sure. That sounds great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's Erica Monteverdi. I'm the Executive Director of Cancer Commons. My background is actually in technology and marketing and business strategy. I joined Cancer Commons about 4 years ago because I wanted to bring my experience in industry to health and have a deeper purpose, I think, in my professional life, which has most certainly taken place. I will possibly use some slides just to get some visuals and change it up a little bit for all of you about Cancer Commons. So Cancer Commons, as Mika said, focuses on advanced cancer patients, everyone who's past the standard of care, and is feeling, I think, quite alone in navigating their own care. They're asking themselves, okay, I've exhausted possibly clinical trials, I've had a relapse, now what? And, I think what is evident is that not one single physician or entity or institution knows exactly how to use the available treatments today in combinations with each other, and there necessitates, I think, more of a collective reasoning of multiple expertise around these patient cases. So we've established a patient-centric network of patients and physicians, scientists, academic researchers that are really coming together to identify and deliver the best treatment for each individual. I think the goal is really to give these patients their best chance at a better quality of life and certainly an extension of life, and sometimes saving their lives and beating their cancer. Certainly it's very challenging to cure these kind of patients, but putting them at the center of care is something that seems fairly obvious and yet proved to be quite difficult in the way things are working today. So we really aim to give people who feel like they are alone, isolated, needing to make decisions with a great sense of urgency, in an effort to get them an overall comprehensive plan that they can speak to their physician about, really in making shared decision making. We've helped over 10,000 patients and caregivers over the years. We have various collaborations with the American Cancer Society and other larger nonprofit organizations as well that refer patients to us. This is really about getting our PhD scientists and academic researchers and their treating physicians together to collectively reason to give them the best possible care. It includes also having physicians speaking to other physicians. I think that there are many companies that have poured a lot of money into technology solutions, and our hypothesis is that technology alone will not solve this issue. Specifically, I think that most experts would agree that using data alone may not move the needle in terms of how physicians make decisions, but certainly data and knowledge and being tied into a network of academic physicians that can help make those really tough decisions can make the difference. Hence the Cancer Commons XCures model. So our solution is really to combine available knowledge and the clinical expertise to produce the best shots on goal for patients. And what that means is patients get access to best personalized treatment options and also receive a very, I would say, customized experience and engagement with Cancer Commons staff, specifically with PhD scientists that use their research expertise and, I would say, deep compassion to help patients navigate their care. Treating physicians will get a trusted source of advanced treatment options through the collection of patient data and the collection of reasoning and insights from their academic research peers. And then expert physicians also get an opportunity to share their best knowledge across oncology, helping each and every patient. And really, we are running virtual tumor boards with these academic researchers, and we're seeing that when individuals come together across different organizations, we're really spanning the barriers of collective knowledge and information, experience and expertise, and tying those things together to produce a report and a comprehensive plan for patients is really what is needed. If you think of the environment that we're in today with COVID, it's limiting patients' ability to get access to treatment, let alone not being able to travel. I think Cancer Commons is providing a way for these patients to get a better than a second opinion, really a comprehensive plan in a much shorter amount of time. It's super important because they're not only getting a companion, acting as a clearinghouse of knowledge, we're helping them really understand their situation, produce a set of questions for their physicians where they're getting better engagement and creating, I think, also a shift in the relationship between the patient and the physician to benefit shared decision-making, and ultimately getting them a plan that they need in a very short amount of time. So patients, obviously they benefit from understanding their options. They're getting a plan without needing to leave their home. They're connecting to the right experts. And we're facilitating treatment through the help also of XCures, our partner, and tracking results, trying to understand every patient's outcome so that we can learn from each and every patient within an overall learning system. That also is helpful for us to refine our treatment options for the next similar patient. And so really coordinating, the treatments that patients and physicians are deciding to do in order to understand their outcome and use those outcomes for the next patients that come into our system.
That's good. Micah, did you have anything to add while she's going through this?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. So I think we've been joined actually by Marty. So what Erica's brought up here really is the process that XCures technology supports. But before I jump into the technology and how we apply it to the specific problem, Marty, who's the founder of Cancer Commons and the chairman and co-founder of XCures, has joined us on the line. And I thought maybe a few words, Marty, on why you started XCures based on Erica's and your experience at Cancer Commons, and then we'll drop into the tech side of things.
25 years ago, I was enjoying a great career as an AI researcher and then later an e-commerce entrepreneur. Robots I built at Stanford and SRI are today in the Smithsonian, the Computer History Museum. I founded a number of e-commerce companies, and the first company I founded in 1990 actually conducted the first secure e-commerce transaction on the web. So I've been there. And then I got cancer, and my world turned upside down. I was diagnosed with metastatic melanoma that had metastasized to my liver. And back in the late 90s, this was not survivable. I mean, less than a few percent, because none of these wonder drugs, the targeted therapies, the immunotherapies, were available. Get diagnosed, you go home, you look at Dr. Google, just like any of you would if you were so unfortunate. And what you see is, thousands of results, overwhelming and confusing. I couldn't understand any of them back then. Thousands of articles. So I consulted all the local oncologists in my area, and they agreed on one thing, that my prognosis was dire. But they told me that there were various things they could try, but none of them agreed. And that's the first time I got a little bit of confidence, because I thought they didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And if I had listened to any of them, I wouldn't be here today. I was fortunate to have been doing some pro bono consulting for Rick Klausner, who was running the National Cancer Institute at that time, trying to get him interested in using the internet for cancer things. And he put me in touch with national experts as opposed to the local oncologists. And this was a whole different tier. They also agreed on only one thing, which was that the prognosis was dire. But they had many more interesting options if I wanted to try a Hail Mary. But the question was, how does anyone choose that? And ultimately, I bet my life on a clinical trial that failed. But there were a few exceptional responders, and here's where I got lucky. I was fortunate to be among them. But believe me, that gives you religion. That's when I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to helping others beat the odds. And so the first thing I did was start the nonprofit Cancer Commons. And as Erica said, we've helped 10,000 patients or something like that over the past decade. So that's 10,000 patients over 10 years, 1,000 patients a year. Very, very proud of that. But that's a drop in the bucket compared to what's needed. And so what we had to do was to figure out a way to scale this. And you don't scale this unless you have technology. And I don't know how to develop technology in a nonprofit. So back to my entrepreneurial days, I decided we would spin out a company called XCures from Cancer Commons. And this company would allow us at the very least to accelerate the mission of the nonprofit with investor capital. And if the company really became successful, Cancer Commons would have an endowment. And this is something that a number of nonprofits have discovered now. There's a very synergistic relationship between for-profits and nonprofits. So this company called XCures is developing the technology that we need to scale Cancer Commons and other organizations that are patient-facing, including not just advocacy groups, but hospitals or employers that need to be able to take care of their employees. So in a few months from now, like in Q1, we're going to have the technology in place that's going to be able to match most of the patients who come in the door automatically to a curated library of options and track how it works. And that data, that real world evidence, is going to allow us to continuously refine and our recommendations and optimize the options, the regimens that we're offering the patients. And if there's not enough options, then we go to the Cancer Commons process and run a virtual tumor board where experts are interacting with each other. We capture those insights, mine them, and that too gets into the option library. So this way, we can help most patients at very low cost. And when a patient comes along that is beyond our ability to help them, we can run the virtual tumor board process, and that data, those options give us the ability to maybe help 10 similar patients, 100, 1,000. That's where the scale comes from. So in summary, XCure's platform allows us to tightly integrate clinical research and care so that we're continuously learning from all patients, all treatments, all the time. And this allows us to both improve cancer outcomes for individual patients and to help industry slash the time and cost of developing drugs. And I'm going to hand it over to Mika to tell you how all that works.
Thank you so much, Marty. And I'll be brief here so we can move on to Q&A, because I think Marty and Erica, you guys covered a great deal of ground. So when I met Marty about 2 years ago now, I was really focused on what could be done in the digital health space that would be directly impactful to patients. Cancer, as we've talked about, is certainly a noble cause and has touched all of us, myself included personally, in this journey. So to do what Marty's talked about for patients across the US and do it efficiently and at scale, there are basically 3 problems that we've solved. in the background. So over the last 2 years, we've solved the problem of how do we know the patients, how do we know the treatments, and then how do we make recommendations and learn from them? And I think of those as the 3 pillars. So knowing the patients is involved building the technology architecture to get the current clinical status and the ongoing longitudinal status of any patient anywhere in the United States cheaply and efficiently. And we get that leveraging legal mechanisms in HIPAA and our ability to structure completely unstructured data, which is unfortunately the way that health data is transmitted across the entire network and remains so today. We also know the treatment, so we manage a curated options library that Marty was talking about. In that, we know what should be considered for each patient and how to get it. And one of the big learnings over the last few years, I think for all of us, it has been, certainly in the advanced cancer space, it's not only what to do, it's how you get it. And giving people information about things that they can't do is not useful. So you have to keep both of those problems in mind. And then we've developed now the foundational architecture for modeling. So natural language processing to be able to process and understand the data, both on the patient and what is available in the literature. Predictive models, so hierarchical Bayesian predictive models of how well will patients, or how well do we expect patients to do on any given particular treatment. And because frankly, the knowledge in oncology is so sparse around most of these novel approaches, how do you phone a friend? How do you get experts involved? And what is the technology you need in order to capture expert insights? So we've built all of those foundational pieces. As Marty said, we're actually, those are deployed currently in Cancer Commons and some of our other partners. And over the course of this coming year, we'll be launching the interfaces to get access to it. As mentioned before, we are fundraising at this point. Exeter is deeply involved in putting together our A round. We'd welcome any investor interest in that space. And of course, Cancer Commons as a philanthropy continues to raise money as well for their own nonprofit activities. So I would encourage anyone who's considering giving at the end of the year to reach out to Cancer Commons directly. So I will stop there, Alex, I think, and maybe we move over into some Q&A, if that makes sense.
Fantastic, good timings. And I invite anyone, we are receiving some Q&A here. Of course, feel free to use the functionality to post some additional questions. But I guess, Mika, a question here is, what's the total number of patients you project that you will work with in general? Any answer to that?
So when we look at the overall flow this year, I think we're just coming over, I think it's about 600 this year who've actually gotten onto the system, registered and consented to using the program. Our target for next year is 2,000. So we really, I think, launched the technology, I think it would be about June of 2019, and have since been scaling. As I mentioned, we needed to solve those 3 challenges, and now we're really ready to move at much larger scale. The way that we sequence our approach, Alex, is by cancer type. So we started in brain cancer and have now moved into pancreatic cancer and continue to move into ovarian and colon cancer specifically.
And with the data, question is, just reading it here, any sensitivities or opportunities with data internationally?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we focused as our starting point on the US market because of our understanding of HIPAA and the fact that this is a very large population. So 1.7 million cancer cases per year, 600,000 plus deaths from advanced cancer in the United States alone. We've gotten into a number of conversations with local groups who are interested in applying our approach, and actually we welcome that in other geographies. I think one of our learnings is around health data, and certainly I think all of our sensitivity to privacy, that it's very important to have local collaborators. So for instance, we've been talking to a number of European colleagues in the area of pediatric oncology. We really need and want that type of connection and partnership in order to be successful. But certainly the tools and the techniques are generally applicable on a global basis.
And again, for any attendees, feel free to post questions as we move on soon to our co-hosts. But we have, for Cancer Commons, what is the partnership structure between Cancer Commons and XKeurers? If our family is interested in donating, who should we follow up with?
So I can take that one. So Cancer Commons at the moment is a 100% philanthropic organization. So philanthropic donations would go directly to Cancer Commons. Our website, cancercommons.org, has all the information under ways that you can help us. and how to donate. And certainly you can reach out directly to me as well. Be happy to provide you with deeper collateral and be happy to actually speak to you as well. For XCures, those initiatives and investments would be directed to Mika Newton directly. The relationship between Cancer Commons and XCures is that we have an agreement with XCures in terms of providing our services, and we are XCures' first customer. We use the technology that XCures has created in order to be able to do patient intake, structuring medical records, producing our Cancer Commons report, and working across our network in order to gather insights from all network participants. Mika, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, I think that was perfect.
Yeah, I might add one thing, if I may, which is that if any of you know anyone who is dealing with a devastating cancer, someone who has exhausted the standard of care and needs innovative new options, Cancer Commons is here to help you. And we're unique in the services that we offer anywhere in the world. And we've dealt with patients in dozens of countries. So by all means, please refer patients to us. That's what we're here for.
Thank you all so far who've presented, and we will move on to our co-host. To Marty's point, for those that have to either jump off at the half hour of the attendees, we are here to facilitate materials, next steps, arrange meetings, or further questions. We do have a couple other questions coming up here, which we'll coordinate offline. Nilam, Total Life, you can present.
Hi, everyone. I'm the founder of Total Life. Our mission is to provide critical mental health care services to seniors remotely through the teletherapy model. We are focused on making sure it's affordable, easy to access, and comprehensive. And so we are launching this month to tackle the accelerated mental health issues that have been caused by COVID. It's proven that untreated mental health can deteriorate overall health by up to 48-fold. So while COVID is very dangerous, the mental health issues that are coming along with COVID are also not to be ignored. We are looking for people who want to collaborate with us and support this mission. Senior mental health is a crisis, and the market is large and growing. And so we welcome anybody who cares for supporting mental health issues of aging. And that also involves what Mika and Marty are working on with cancer. We can collaborate with platforms that are helping with the diagnosis and support the mental health journey.
Question we have for Total Life is, question for Patrick, able to?
It looks like we just need everybody here to mute mics that are not currently speaking. And then I think we should be in good shape to transition there, Alex.
Great, thank you, everybody. Total Life. Question is, how do you differentiate from some of the other telemedicine and tele apps out there, as I put your highlights on the screen as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we are entirely focused on the gerontology space, and we are unique in that framework. From the age of 65 to 105 or maybe beyond that, there are different life stages that one faces that requires therapists that are entirely familiar and focused on those treatments. So from the onset of illness, diagnosis of a chronic disease, loss of loved ones, reduction in mobility. These are all unique factors of aging. And so our platform is entirely designed to support what happens as you age and how we can improve your mental health and cognitive abilities.
Very good. Again, some other questions coming up, but we will move on to our other co-host, Club Globals.
Thanks, Alex. Mario Palladini from Club Globals. Very noble project I'm supporting. I lost my father on cancer, so I'm very touched with this process. Congratulations, guys, wish you best of success. What are we doing with a global entrepreneurs and investors network? We support scale-ups to expand their business, especially to Europe. So we are connecting with partners in mainly digital tech and medtech. So yeah, it's a great pleasure to hear and be with you guys. We've been around more than 10 years, large network, the way we work, we understand your challenge and work with very selective customers and support them with different campaigns and programs. Could be awareness campaigns, could be with meetings, introductions. And what we're looking is exactly for that. So companies or scale-ups are interested to expand and get more awareness or connection into the European market to expand their business and or to get more talents or partners or customers. So we're looking here to support a very special project like this. So we're looking forward to staying in touch.
Okay. So yeah, Alex, do we have any questions here that have popped up for Mario?
Yes, seeing a question, are you European-centric or an international focus?
Indeed, our main core is in Europe. We do have some, we have some business in the Middle East, in Dubai, New York as well, but it's mainly Europe where we have our core network.
Great. Moving on, and do see some other questions coming up for back to Cancer Commons and XCures, but thank you Club Globals for co-hosting. Spire BioVentures.
Yes, hi, hi Alex, hi everyone. I agree with Mario that the story, the XCure story is a very touching one, and you know, I think it's the work you're doing is very pertinent. So my name is Hatim Shaibi. I'm actually standing up here for Hisham Jorio, who's a colleague of mine. So we founded a company called Spire Advisory Group. We're based in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we are, as the title suggests, an advisory group, and we work with startups, not only in the US, but internationally, to give them visibility here in the Bay Area and access to strategic partners as well as funding. As a matter of fact, Marid probably doesn't remember, but I did meet him with a company we work with called DNA Mito, that works with Varian, with a gentleman called Syed Hamdani, who used to be the VP strategy for Varian. And so I have met Mari, and I'm happy to see him here. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Question is, your highlights are up on the screen, and venture seems to be a focus, but do you also help establish companies enter new regions, the MENA region in particular?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's, I should have mentioned that that's the core competency of Hisham, who is my partner. We have very strong relationships in North Africa, Middle East, and Europe. Yes, so we do a lot of that. One of the group we work with, just to give you an idea, for example, with the company that I just mentioned, DNA Mito, we work with Mastro Clinic, which is it's basically in the Netherlands. And speaking of oncology, it's one of the centers of oncology in Europe. So we have partnerships in Europe also. But yes, to answer your question, Alex, we definitely do a lot of work internationally and a lot in Africa, Middle East, and Europe.
Each of our co-hosts we're actively working with. If you want to request meetings with them, we're happy to coordinate materials or one-on-one meetings, matching your agendas. And I guess, Mary, I see you've been able to join back in. Thank you for co-hosting as well.
Yes, an inspiring story. The longevity market is an $8.3 trillion market, and there are lots of riches in the niches. And we produce events that help people understand the marketplace and also go-to-market strategies. So we've been working with XCures. We're very inspired by the company. And we've raised over about 170 million in corporate venture and sponsorships, all focused on this market. So we've been working with Visionary for several years in trying to help accelerate time to market for companies.
Thank you for, and I guess question we often get, Mary, I'll pose this one, is how do you define longevity? I know health is a key focus, but it goes beyond health.
Well, you could say, as AARP does, health, wealth, and self. Certainly, financial issues are often entangled with health-related issues. And one of the new issues to watch over the next decade is caregiving. So all the rules have changed since COVID, and there's huge opportunities in telehealth and in services provided to older people after the COVID.
Thank you, Mary. And I know we're going to wind down. A key question, and I guess back to XCures, is coming from our attendees here. Are patients able to enroll in clinical trials?
I actually answered the question via chat. Yes, so Cancer Commons informs patients every day of relevant clinical trials. What I mean by relevant is personalized to them, because we take into consideration molecular diagnostics testing, current treatment, all past treatment. We really take a deep dive in that, and I think we're one of the only organizations that does so in terms of past treatment history. And we look at patient preference, where they're located, if they're able to travel or not. We take all of that into consideration, as well as any comorbidities, and we search for clinical trials. Having said that, because of XCures, we now are also able to aim to facilitate enrollment in clinical trials as well. I'll speak just for a second for Mika, which is XCures is curating the top options for every cancer type, which includes clinical trials, of course, and their product is moving towards having a semi-automated way of actually connecting clinical data of patients to the right trials, matching to options. And Cancer Commons is really looking forward to using that product as of March 2021 in order for us to actually move faster and be more efficient as an organization.
I guess maybe
So-
it's, go ahead, yeah.
Sorry, I think
Yep.
I may have hopefully fixed my tech issue. I think Erica brings a great point. So with the issue of clinical trials are mostly or are run primarily by the pharmaceutical industry to prove the safety and efficacy of their drugs. They're incredibly valuable from a patient perspective as a way to access the medications. But just because, and to put the problem in picture, or put a picture on it, only about 5% of the patients who actually want to or try to get into clinical trials are able to do so. But just because you're unable to access a clinical trial does not necessarily mean that that particular treatment option is not potentially the best one for you. So we also try to explore all of the alternative things, such as expanded access, compassionate use, right to try, et cetera, so that we really try to be exhaustive. So clinical trials are certainly critical. They're very important to our understanding of the safety and efficacy of medicines. But from a patient perspective, you really need to think about a broad set of options.
Perfect. Thanks for answering, Micah. And then lastly here, there was one other question indicating what is the source of your data for the clinical trials? I'm wondering if it's published data in ct.gov or from another source.
Yeah, we use clinicaltrials.gov as certainly a very useful source. And then we receive other data from some of our partners that goes a little bit deeper, essentially, into the clinical structure. I think what we try to do first and foremost is actually to think about the patient. So our ability to get the patient's current clinical situation, and then to build the set of, let's call it 3 to 5 potential options so that organizations like Cancer Commons can then properly match the patient. It's really about filtering and identifying that data. So yes, we use clinicaltrials.gov, and we use other data sources as well to try to build the most comprehensive picture.
To stick to our timeline here, thank you everyone for presenting. Vision will coordinate materials, meetings, referrals, earn access credits. If this is not for you, that's also useful for us to understand your current objectives. A good number requesting recorded copies, here to support posts during this busy end of year period. If you're considering donations, want to proceed with XCures, any of the panelists, any of the co-hosts, we thank everyone for their time, and we look forward to being in touch to better understand your objectives, coordinate these meetings, take part in our unique network model, and participate in the 2021. So thank you, XCures and Cancer Commons and our co-hosts.